Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we resolve our problems with words for once instead of violence. Because this week we watched the Shakespeare Code.
Written by Gareth Roberts.
Directed by Charles Palmer. Nice,
and
easy name.
Aired on April 7th, 2007.
Yeah, Gareth Roberts back for his second script, right? He didn't write anything for Series 2, as far as I can remember.
I don't even remember what he wrote for Series 1.
I think it was Father's Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember, like I just said.
Pretty sure it was Father's Day then, seeing as I guess I can just be the end-all authority on this.
Yeah. No need to look anything up here.
So Martha's second story in the TARDIS. Well, first story in the TARDIS, second story on the show.
Yeah, she goes in. She went in the last episode.
Okay, she went into the TARDIS in the last episode, but this is her story that results because she was in the TARDIS.
Yeah, sure.
Nailed it. So it begins with a guy trying to get laid the Shakespeare way, which is by standing outside the girl's window and playing his lute.
Throwing rocks until she shows up. No.
Accidentally breaking the window. Oh shoot, I'm gonna pay for the window now. Her mom's gonna know. Abort.
So she brings him in. She's like, surprise, I'm actually an alien demon. He's like, well, didn't see that coming.
He's like, but I'll still get laid if you're offering. She's like, no.
He walks in and she has, some satanic decorations up. He's like, whoa, that's kind of strange.
And then she's like, don't worry about it, just kiss me. And he's like, all right, guess I'll ignore all these red flags just to get laid. She's like, yes. And then she turns, kissing her reverts her to a regular form, which is like an old lady. And he's like, I kissed an old lady.
A Shakespearean witch. And he's like, oh no, and then he dies.
Well, yeah, she reveals her parents, I guess, the two other witches who are named, I don't remember one of them, but the other one's named Deathfinger, so that's pretty cool.
Deathfinger and Bloodtide.
And she's named Lilith.
Yeah.
Which is only mentioned once in the episode.
Which is some biblical thing, I think, some demon.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the demons that they had to, they had to strike down because it was, a false idol or something. I don't remember. But, yeah, it's her name.
I don't know anything about the Bible anymore, unfortunately.
But,
and then we get the title sequence.
Yeah. And the Doctor and Martha show up just completely coincidentally, just in time to solve this problem. And they actually mention this later in the episode, I think Lilith actually says it can't just be a coincidence that the Doctor showed up here of all time.
The Doctor kind of mentions it too. He's like, this was just supposed to be a vacation trip and I'm going to solve this damn problem.
Yeah, I guess just actually acknowledging for once the fact that it is just complete coincidence that the Doctor just shows up just in time to solve all these problems.
Yeah, I mean,
quote unquote solve. Sometimes he just makes things worse.
Okay, I mean, basically every episode of this show has been the Doctor showing up conveniently right on time to solve the problem. I mean, not every episode. I'm pretty sure there were a couple that weren't like that.
No, a lot of them are actually just a more powerful force just bringing the Doctor in. Like the Time Lords, the Black Guardian, the White Guardian.
The Celestial Toymaker.
And just any number of other...
the Daleks.
Yeah, the Daleks.
Every time they make one of those ill-defined time corridors. Anyway.
Bad Wolf, that was just Rose.
So.
Who shows up in this episode in name.
Again.
Which I guess was actually interesting with the, language and naming themes of the episode. But on the other hand, just let her go, Russell T. I know you didn't write this episode, but let her go, Russell T. Let her go.
He doesn't want to let her go. So, yeah, the TARDIS is still really bumpy in flight, which will probably just be immediately thrown out next week. It'll just be back to normal, level, safe flight. Just, obviously, the Doctor showing off for Martha, probably.
At least they get to go back to New York next week.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
I forgot that Gridlock is next week's story. I actually really, really liked Gridlock the first time I watched it. I hope I like it as much the second time.
Yeah, I guess we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but the preview actually makes it look like the best story in like a season, basically. Anyway, yeah, they show up in 1599 London.
And they go out, and Martha's like, hey, can I even be out here? And the doctor's like, what are you even talking about? And she's like, I'm black,
not white,
doctor.
In case you haven't noticed. The doctor's like, well, I'm not even human, so don't even worry, which is an asinine comment for, like, multiple reasons.
Yeah, because the doctor looks like a white male. But he just says, like, oh, yeah, just walk like you own the place. It'll be fine. It turns out he's right.
Yeah, he is. I mean, there's also the issue of, like, why isn't Martha just arrested on the spot, considering, like, her bare arms and, like, clothing that would be deemed totally inappropriate in 1599, but,
because of that cleavage she's showing, which is a lot compared to what everyone else is wearing.
But everyone else just kind of writes it off or, just ignores it. I guess just touching on the human capacity to just ignore things. And I don't know, probably just because it doesn't fit in the story at all.
I mean, also, but that is a thing, like, people will tend to just ignore things they just don't want to get involved in.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. I mean, unless you're doing some really obnoxious BS, like, nobody's really going to call you out on anything.
I mean, even in the story, like, at the end of the story, basically everyone who's in the Globe Theatre audience just basically writes off everything that just happened, so...
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, and also the doctor materialized the TARDIS, like, dead in the center of Town Square. There's no way nobody saw that happen, and then nobody mentions it. So.
I mean, there's also the Carrionite demon witch thing, and they're both just like, never speak of this again. Because they don't want to get thrown in Bedlam, but...
Yeah, so the doctor and Martha running through the streets, and then the doctor's like, hey, we're like right around the corner from the Globe.
Except they're not right around the corner. It looks like it's a couple miles away. There's also, the doctor points it out, and it's a painted backdrop that they either just, hung in the background or just imposed, just edited it in. But it looks blatantly like just terrible as a painted backdrop. But
this is apparently one of the most expensive episodes. One of the most expensive episodes of Doctor Who produced to this point. Actually, I think it was the most expensive episode produced up to this point. Well, they spent a ton apparently on costumes and sets for the story.
Yeah, the effects weren't half bad either. With, like I mentioned before, the Carrionite witch ghost demon thing, and just the special effects in that scene at the end, weren't half bad. The prosthetics with the witches were pretty good too.
And apparently they repurposed a lot of the sets from the story, like the witch's attic room thing gets repurposed as Sarah Jane's residence in the Sarah Jane Adventures.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I didn't think of this when watching it, but I guess, the reason why, you have two old witches and then Lilith is just, her human disguise form or whatever is probably because they only made two witch masks.
Yeah, I mean...
Because you do see Lilith in her old form, but like never at the same time as the other two.
Yeah. Suspicious. So they go and they watch a performance of Love's Labour's Lost, which is actually an incredibly difficult title to say out loud, I've just discovered.
Thanks, Shakespeare.
And Martha really likes it.
Everyone in the crowd really likes it. And then Shakespeare shows up and he's like, hey, heard you liked the play. Gonna make a sequel.
I'm the best.
Yeah, he basically just comes on stage and says a couple cocky lines or whatever, and the doctor is like incredibly disappointed at this.
Martha's like, never meet your heroes, which is true. You should never meet your heroes because they can basically never live up to this perception you have of them.
Yeah, I guess. And Shakespeare is played by Ewan McGregor. No,
he's not, but I was actually going to ask you if he looked like Obi-Wan to you, because he did to me. I was thinking this at the end of the episode. I was like, man, who does he look like? Oh, right, it's Obi-Wan.
I seriously was thinking that it was him, and then I watched the credits, as I always do, and it's not. But
no, it's just some other guy.
Who looks uncannily like him, but yeah.
I mean, when he has the beard, his IMDb picture doesn't have a beard. He looks completely different. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. But yeah, so the doctor wants to go meet Shakespeare, I guess.
just because Shakespeare's promised to put on a production of Love's Labour's Won, which is like supposedly his lost play or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, he promises it tomorrow. And you see this mysterious lady in the audience, which is just the witch lady from before, with like a voodoo doll. And she like twists the hair, and then when she does that, Shakespeare like snaps into some sort of weird trance, and that's when he promises to put on Love's Labour's Won the next day. Because Shakespeare was like, yeah, it's kind of weird that the show just ends, doesn't it? Well, that's because I'm writing a sequel, because I want money. I actually don't know how much Shakespeare gets paid to write these plays. I mean, if he even gets paid at all.
Probably a lot. He was knighted and like wrote plays for the Queen and stuff, and was basically the most famous person in England at the time. So a lot of his plays, and people don't know this, but a lot of his plays are actually remakes, like Romeo and Juliet remake.
Yeah. That's like a main premise of the musical Something Rotten, which is that the main premise of the musical is that he steals Hamlet from well, it's not the main premise, but like a subplot, where Shakespeare's main B plot is that he steals Hamlet from one of the main characters because it's hard to be the bard. He doesn't want to write a new show because he's like, people love my show so much it's hard to follow every show with a new one. So he just steals Hamlet.
I mean, Hamlet out of all of them is probably the one with the most original ideas, but like still a lot of the stuff in that is just taken from previous concepts, which like every single story in existence is just taken from previous things. So, there you go.
Yeah, Shakespeare's genius was in marketing, actually, as it turns out.
I mean, I'm not like a Shakespeare. I do study English. I'm not like a Shakespearean or anything. I actually barely know. I actually don't know as much about Shakespeare as I should. But the doctor calls him a genius multiple times throughout this episode, and like, yeah, I kind of think that's true. Mm-hmm. Marketing genius, sure, but like, I actually do kind of think he was a literary genius as well. But hey, whatever.
I mean, he probably was. We'll never meet him, so we won't know. But
as far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know. Based on his works, he seems like a genius. So, the Doctor and Martha go to meet him, and Shakespeare's trying to kick him out, but then he sees Martha, and he's like, who is this beautiful lady? And the Doctor's like,
Make some extremely questionable comments that I'm not going to repeat.
Yeah. The Doctor's like, ooh.
Martha also starts trying to talk in, like, Middle English, and
the Doctor's like, no.
Which, I mean, is kind of weird. Everyone in this talks in, modern English, which makes sense based on the TARDIS translation circuit thing or whatever. Yeah. But, like, at times they also talk in, like, early modern English. So that's kind of weird.
Well, when they're putting on the show, the play, it's still in Old English.
Yeah.
Middle English, I mean.
But, I mean, there's also just a few random lines, like with Shakespeare, just in general.
And also the guy on the side of the street, the Doctor makes a couple comments about how Martha would find, they're not so backwards in Middle Ages England. He's like, yeah, they've got
recycling,
and water cooler talk, and global warming. Because there's a guy going, the world's gonna end in fire, and then later on he's like, told ye, which should get translated as told you, but whatever.
Yeah, plus ye also means the and not like you. So
yeah, classic Gareth Roberts.
Yeah, there's a lot in this. We'll get to that scene at the end where.
Okay.
We'll just get there.
Okay. So the Doctor and Martha. Well, the Doctor pulls out his psychic paper, and Shakespeare's like, "Wow, that paper's blank." The Doctor's like, "I'm Sir Doctor of TARDIS." And Martha's like, "No, it says it right there, Sir Doctor of TARDIS." And the Doctor's like, psychic paper. Long story. Don't really want to explain it to you, Martha, so don't worry about it. And he just puts it away. I think the implication is that if you're smart enough, you can just get through the psychic paper without even training, because we know one of the tortured people had training.
Yeah, which is, I think, a good addition to, the psychic paper's capabilities, because it just seems way too overpowered otherwise.
The 11th Doctor one time uses it once, and it just shorts out, and the guy's like, that's just displaying a bunch of squealy lines. And the 11th Doctor's like, oh, damn, finally a lie that was too big for the psychic paper, so...
But yeah, Shakespeare can see through it, and he's like, yeah. He reveals that he hasn't finished Love's Labour's Won. He's like, gotta finish that tonight.
This guy comes in.
Yeah, Linley, who's the he's a government official who's in charge of. He basically registers all the plays, this is a real thing. You have to get your play registered by the government to put it on back then.
And Shakespeare's like, I haven't finished it yet. I'll get it to you tomorrow. And the guy's like, you work on my schedule, not yours. I'm going to go get your play barred from being performed. And Shakespeare's like, okay.
And Martha's like, well, I guess that solves the mystery then. Guess that's why it never came out.
The doctor's like, yeah, I guess it does. But then they hear Lindley screaming outside. So
And they walk out and he's spewing water and just drowning because Lilith is just off in an alley just drowning his voodooized, his doll, basically.
His voodoo doll. And the doctor's like, damn, was really hoping just to have a nice, peaceful vacation to Middle Ages England to see Shakespeare, and now I've got to solve this freaking mystery. God damn it.
Could just leave. There's always the option to just leave. Well, most of the time.
There is the option, but the doctor wouldn't do that.
No.
You would think he wouldn't do that. Stephen Moffat.
What is this?
Actually, Stephen Moffat didn't write that story. It was someone else.
I mean, all right. There's also the line that was almost our intro that just touches on the fact that like only men played, the parts in old plays. This is when they're watching Love's Labour's Lost, and Martha asks the doctor if the female roles are just men in drag, and he's like, "Yep, London never changes."
Oh yeah, I was like, "What are you trying to say, Gareth?"
But yeah, so Lindley dies,
yeah,
and the doctor's like, "Nothing to see here, just a case of the
bad humors." And
yeah.
Martha's like, "Why'd you say that?" And he's like, "Well, because if I told him what he really died of, everyone would run around thinking it's witchcraft." And she's like, "Oh, so what'd he die of?" And he's like, "Oh, witchcraft."
So now there's a mystery to solve.
Yeah, so the doctor and Martha get put up in a bedroom in Shakespeare's house, I guess.
I think it's just an inn.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's just staying in an inn.
Shakespeare's bunking up. Yeah, because Martha kind of rejects his advances later because she's got a wife in the country, and Shakespeare's like, yes, but this is the town. So I guess Shakespeare's just a serial cheater. Maybe there's a commentary there being made.
He is going to be sleeping with the innkeep like later that night, but then she dies. So, which doesn't stop him. No.
Yikes! Whoa! No.
Anyway, Doctor and Martha get put up in a room that looks. I mean, I don't really know much about the early modern period as it's come to be called. But this room looks far larger than what you would think an inn room would be.
I don't know anything about the history of innkeeping. But there's only one bed.
There's only one bed. And Martha's like, so which one of us is going to take the floor? And the doctor's like, neither.
We can just sleep in this bed. We can make it work. Martha's like, ooh. And the doctor's like, in a wholly platonic way, Martha. But then he like gets really intimate with her and they're like looking at each other in the bed and he's like, Rose would know what to say, and Martha's just like devastated, and you can see it on her face, and you're like, "Oh my God, let her go, Doctor, let her go, Russell T."
I didn't really think she was devastated so much as just like weirded out by the fact that the doctor keeps mentioning Rose.
No, she was pretty clearly devastated because she turns over and blows out the candle like really angrily when the doctor rolls over. He's like, "Well, never mind," and she just rolls over like really angrily.
Huh. Well, that's not what I got out of that at all. So.
Don't worry, they'll make it more obvious that there's unreciprocated love there. They'll make it more obvious.
Great. Meanwhile, the witches have convened.
Doing witchy things.
Bubble, toil and trouble.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Actually, don't drop anything from Macbeth, I think, in this.
Yeah, the doctor keeps dropping lines that Shakespeare's going to use later, which is
and Martha's
weird.
Martha's like, when they finish watching the play, Martha's like, author. He's like, do they shout author in this period? And it catches on. The doctor's like, I guess they do now.
Yeah, the doctor drops a couple lines for Shakespeare, like all the world's a stage, and I think Shakespeare comes up with to be or not to be later on.
Yeah.
The doctor also says something else, and Shakespeare's like, "Oh, I want to steal that." The doctor's like, "Oh, sorry, can't. Someone else's actually."
Yeah,
I don't remember what it is.
It's "Don't go restless into that good night," which I think that's from Robert Frost. Don't quote me on that.
Is it Robert Frost? I don't know.
I'll just Google it right now.
Okay. From the poem, do not go gentle into that good night, which was like a key plot element of the movie Interstellar, if you saw that movie. I know Keon saw that movie.
No, it's by Dylan Thomas.
Okay.
Don't even know who that is, but yeah, it's by him.
Dylan Thomas, that famous poet with the same name as me. All right, well, that's good to know, I guess.
It's Welsh.
Anyway, the Doctor and Martha the next day wake up and Shakespeare wakes up and they decide to go to the Globe Theatre to see if they can figure out what's going on. And they get there and the Doctor's like, why does the globe have 14 sides? It should be a circle or something. And Shakespeare's like, I don't know.
The Doctor and Martha also discuss Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which actually comes into play later on, so,
Yeah, the 7th book, I don't think it'd come out at this point, which is why the Doctor's saying,
which is why they put an ad for it in this.
Which is why the Doctor's like, wait till you read the 7th book. I cried. And Martha's like, what? And so, yeah, they go to the Globe, and the Doctor's like, why does it have 14 sides? And Shakespeare's like, I don't know. The architect just like, we're going 14. And then he went stark mad after that and started talking about witches.
But I'm sure it's nothing.
The Doctor's like, what? Witches? Let's go find out what's going on.
Yeah. The Doctor's like, well, obviously there's something important about the 14 sides, but I don't know what it is yet.
Martha's like, there's 14 lines in a sonnet, and Doc's like, true. Wonder if that's related somehow, which it is, kind of.
I guess. I mean, it's just a clue to, like, how the form of the thing relates to, like, what it's used for. I mean, it isn't that related, but it just clues them in that way, I guess.
Yeah, so they go to...
They go to Bedlam.
Bedlam. The insane asylum.
Which, I mean, I already knew what this was, and I would assume that the British would know what it is, but there's a lot of like explanatory dialogue in this, so I don't know.
Maybe maybe they're just not the people watching this just aren't well versed in.
I mean, it's better to like actually explain it than like Pip and Jane Baker style, just put a bunch of literary references that nobody would even get.
Well, that was because they're trying to make the Sixth Doctor really literary and well traveled.
Yeah, and look how that turned out.
Poorly. Just made him come off like a pompous asshole all the time.
Anyway, they go to Bedlam, and there's some commentary about how, punishment back in the day used to be like exhibitionist and like, you don't want to do this or else you're going to get hanged or whipped. Whereas like nowadays it's supposedly rehabilitative, but
Yes, definitely. Really is, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the death penalty is not exhibitionist at all.
We still have the death penalty here in California. It hasn't been used in like 40 years, but we still have it.
Yeah, because at this point there'd be such a big outcry, rightfully so in my opinion, about it being used. They just don't even want to dare. Anyway, they beat the prisoners.
Yeah. Yeah, the guard who's like...
Even though they're not really prisoners.
Yeah, they're patients, I guess, supposedly, although it looks more like a dungeon than a hospital. The guard who's escorting them is like, hey, want to see some people get whipped? And they're like, we'll pass. Yeah,
Shakespeare's like, well, Martha's like, this is crazy. You're a smart man. You'd know this is wrong. And Shakespeare's like, I don't know. I mean, I lost my mind after my son died, but then the fear of getting put in this place set me right back on the regular path again. Martha's like, oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, maybe he has a point, somewhat of a point. I don't know. I don't think I necessarily agree with that, but, maybe there's some bit of truth in there.
I don't know. Mental illness is difficult to understand, and there's no real catch-all solution for everybody because everybody's different, and everybody's mental illness is different.
Yeah, and I don't think all the patients in Bedlam were, like, mentally ill. I'm pretty sure they were just, like, different than everyone else. So, like, well, you're crazy. We'll just throw you in here. Which comes with its own set of problems, but hey. Anyway, they're escorted to where Peter Street is staying, I guess is his name.
And they apparently get locked in the cell with him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not really explained, but, it does happen.
And so the Doctor does some sort of psychic thing to kind of clear up his memory of it, and he gets Peter to tell him the story about the witches, and we see the witches looking into their pot, I guess.
Yeah, they're sort of
cauldron.
Yeah, it's sort of a pool of liquid, and they can sort of just see what's going on.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh shoot, gotta go silence Peter before he talks.
Yeah, so I guess now it's revealed that Deathfinger is named Deathfinger because she can kill people with her finger.
Whoa.
I mean, to be honest, that was a pretty big twist. I really didn't think the name would be that obvious.
So does that mean Blood Tide can just, like, summon a tide of blood? And that seems way more powerful than Deathfinger.
Yeah, and way more useful.
But, you know, maybe powerful in a different way, because Deathfinger's power is a lot more concentrated and exact. You know, you can just kill people with your fingers.
It's more of a surgical knife.
Yeah, whereas if you were to just summon a giant tide of blood, you know, just a giant swath or a giant wave, you know, that would, you know, just cause destruction on a larger scale, but not as concentrated.
Kind of sucks for Lilith, whose powers were like, what, summoning lilies? Fantastic. The other two
she was just the brains of the operation.
Yeah, the other two witches just keep her around because she's like useful as the brains, but like they secretly just kind of hate her.
Yeah, just sort of a Pinky in the brain operation. You know, they're both useful. Pinky is sort of the brawn, and Brain is just the brain.
Whoa, what a twist.
Although rewatching that show years later, it's a lot obvious that Pinky is way smarter than Brain.
Well, I'm
pretty sure most kids realize that as well.
Yeah, I think Pinky has more like street smarts. Brain's just like hyper intelligent, but he doesn't know what to do with it, so he's like comes off as really useless. I feel like that was kind of the point, maybe.
Making an Animaniacs reboot, that was definitely necessary, but you know, anyway.
So Deathfinger goes to the asylum, like touches Peter and kills him, but the doctor's already figured out that it's witches, and he's like, wait, I know this. 14-sided shape, sonnets, words. You guys are the Carrionites. I knew it.
Yeah, he does this thing which he's done, you know, multiple times before, where I guess it's just an example of how smart the Doctor is. But, you know, would be nice if it was something that you as the watcher could have, or as the audience somehow could have figured out. But, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're the Carrionites. They're aliens, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be actual witches.
No.
The Doctor says this earlier, like, it's obviously not witches. It's just definitely probably aliens doing things that look like witches. We just got to figure out what the heck they are.
Yeah, Martha, I think, asks if magic is real. The Doctor says something along the lines of, yes, it's just the science you haven't figured out yet, or something like that.
Yeah, kind of like that. I think it's Arthur C. Clarke quote that everybody quotes. It's like, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I think that was Arthur C. Clarke. Pretty sure it's Arthur C. Clarke. Might have been Isaac Asimov, but I don't think it was. I'm like 99% certain it was Clarke.
Yeah, Ursula K. Le Guin just died like last week, so...
Yeah, that was interesting.
I guess.
Anyway, the Doctor and Martha... Well, the witch goes away because the Doctor names them, and he's like, the power of names. Because apparently the Carrionites are super word-based villains, which would have been really cool if they had explored that more. But as it stands, it really just shows up now and then at the end of the story.
I mean, that's something that's. I mean, in a lot of world literature, it's biblical, and it comes the power of like words or names comes up a lot in Shakespeare's plays as well. So,
yeah, which is why I guess.
But I mean, they don't really dive into it here. They just kind of use it. I mean, I guess they kind of do. I'd be interested in rewatching this episode, just trying to pick up on it a little more. But you know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Big Finish has been doing these box sets where they pair, like, monsters introduced in the reboot with classic Doctors. So they did one where they paired the Carrionites off against the Sixth Doctor, which I think is a clever idea because of, like we mentioned earlier, how literary they tried to make the Sixth Doctor. It could be an interesting pairing, I think. Sixth Doctor against the Carrionites. I think they also did the Seventh Doctor against the Sycorax.
Jeez. Well, they bring up the Sycorax in this because of Sycorax, the character.
Which I guess Shakespeare also steals from the Doctor. So they come up with this plan because the Doctor is talking with Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's like, I don't remember writing the final like 3 lines of Love's Labour's Won, but I just left them in there because, you know, they were in my handwriting, so I must have written them sometime.
The Doctor's like, it's a key. It's the Carrionites are using the last few lines as a key, I guess.
Forgot to mention there's a scene where they're like practicing a rehearsal and they say the lines and it like sort of perturbs the portal, I guess.
Yeah, it's two. There's a scene with, I don't know, I think this is pretty much right now actually, but the two actors are just trying to get their lines down or whatever they're rehearsing, and they say the last couple of lines and it summons a Carrionite ghost.
Yeah.
I guess, which disappears right away, and they're like, never speak of this again, because they don't want to get thrown in an asylum.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the doctor's like, oh, well, we should probably stop them. So Shakespeare, you go and stop the performance, and we'll go confront the Carrionites, because they find out from Peter where the Carrionites are living.
Yeah.
Because Peter saw them and met them at their house.
Yeah, which I forget what the street name is, but it's something that doesn't sound like a real name of a street. That's all I remember thinking about when I heard it.
Well, I just keep wondering why the Carrionites put the lines required to summon them at the end of the play instead of, like, the first lines in the show.
Get some good entertainment in before the end of the world, you know?
I don't know. The Doctor makes a lot of references to how, like, theater has a lot of power and magic isn't necessarily real, but, like, the magic of the theater is, like, you can say things and you can make people weep, or weep from sadness or weep from joy just by doing things on stage.
This is a little later, but he says you can change people's minds with just words in this place. And, you know, I always have a problem when people say things like this, or, like, they call theater or even movies or TV literature, because, well, I mean, it's not just written word. It's like, it's a visual format as well. That's why I don't consider, like, plays, movies, literature, because, well, I consider scripts literature, but I don't consider, like, the play itself literature, because literature is writing, and plays themselves are not writing, they're performed, they're visual as well. So that's just my rant.
I don't know, I agree with you on that one, actually. I think the visual aspect of movies and plays and TV shows plays a huge part in, like, what you get out of it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
it's not just the words in most cases that's having an effect on you in most cases anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just reading the script and you're, like, weeping from sadness, then yeah, okay. Then I guess it is the words having an effect on you, but anyway.
Yeah.
the Shakespeare gets knocked out because Lilith still has the voodoo doll of Shakespeare, so
they kill the innkeep.
Poor innkeep. And yeah, Shakespeare's knocked out, so the Doctor, so the Carrionite, like, uses the power of names against Martha, and she's like, didn't work to kill her. I guess she's out of her time. And the Doctor's like, yeah. She's like, what?
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
And then the Carrionite, like, tries to figure out the Doctor's name, and she's like, you don't have a name.
I think she says he's hidden his name behind multiple layers of something or the other, something along those lines.
And that's something that Stephen Moffat will bring up in his run, too, about the Doctor's name.
Yeah, it's Theta Sigma, right?
Theta Sigma. And she's like, well, I guess I can't use the power of name on you, but I can still use this voodoo doll. And the Doctor's like, yeah, voodoo doll. More like genetic duplicator. And she's like, yeah. And so she stabs the voodoo doll, and she thinks she's killed the Doctor, because I guess she just makes this completely baseless assumption that the Doctor only has one heart, even though she knows the Doctor's not human, but whatever.
Yeah, so she stabs one of his hearts, which gives out, and Martha tries to revive him, but he's obviously just pretending he's like, 2 hearts, haha, but he's weak.
He's like, so weird, only having one heart working.
How do you people do this? So they get his heart. Martha gets his heart back in working order, and even though she's basically almost a doctor in the most probably unprofessional way ever, just smacking him a bunch of times. I mean, I'm no doctor, so maybe this is what you'd actually do, but
yeah, but maybe this is perfectly medically accurate, and we just don't know. We also don't know Time Lord biology, so
I guess.
Not that Martha's qualified in Time Lord biology either, really. And so then they run to the theater, and the Doctor, like, chews out Shakespeare's like, I told you to stop the play, and Shakespeare's like, yeah, I kind of got knocked out, Doctor. Can you see this by the fact that I'm lying on the floor, cradling my head? And I was like, oh.
But they get there, and the Carrionites are about to, enact their plan, with the actors basically just about to say the lines.
And they do say the lines, and it opens the portal, and the Doctor's like, no, damn it, we're too late.
Shakespeare runs out and tries to stop, and he's like, this play has to stop.
No,
I'm the writer, and I'm here to put a stop to this.
And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, so they just ignore him, and they're like, are you drunk, man? What are you doing? They just
like,
carry him back.
Stop. You gotta stop, man.
Before it's too late.
And yeah, so the portal's open. There's a bunch of Carrionites basically getting ready to come through. The Doctor also mentions at one point the Carrionites, like, disappeared at the start of the universe, which is kind of interesting, I guess. when the doctor confronts Lilith about this, she's like, "Oh yeah, the old ones came up with the perfect words to lock us away in the dark place, but they had to run out eventually, and here we are."
All right, I didn't pick up on any of that. I was more into the awesome special effects during this scene. By awesome, I mean pretty good for this show, I guess.
Awesome for this show is what you're saying.
They open the portal, and I don't really know how to describe this. It's sort of just swirly. It's
a laser beam in the sky, basically.
But it looks pretty good,
actually. The three witches are cackling over their crystal ball. Really cackling, kind of almost overplaying it, but anyway. And now we get this great resolution, which I'm being sarcastic because it was kind of underwhelming to me, but it makes sense in the context of the story, so I don't really have much to complain about.
I mean, it makes sense in context, but so basically what happens is the doctor urges Shakespeare to use his power as, a master of words to stop the Carianites. And he comes up with some lines on the spot.
Some nonsense, really.
And I guess just in the context of the story and how they play it off, it's a Shakespearean line, just a great line, an example of Shakespearean just text, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's Gareth Roberts writing it, so obviously it's not as good.
And they end it with Expelliarmus because Shakespeare runs out of words.
Which that in itself is just,
It just feels kind of underwhelming because it's they beat the villain by just talking them away,
and plus the lines aren't even that great.
And you can barely hear them over the just cacophony of noise that's being spewed at you.
And really, right, they end it with Shakespeare can't think of the final rhyme, but the doctor can, which that in itself also is kind of not a good point.
It wasn't even the doctor, it was just Martha.
Oh, it was Martha. She comes up with it. She comes up with Expelliarmus because of Harry Potter. And I mean, I guess this. I guess
brings it full circle, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, because I'm not a big Harry Potter fan or anything, and I think it's sort of almost a disgrace to Shakespeare's plays to even rank Harry Potter in the same league as them. But both basically the most popular British things of their era.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they're at least comparable in their
popularity,
popularity and effect on the populace and popular culture. Really,
yeah definitely.
And, who knows, maybe 300 years from now, Harry Potter will be considered a classic. It'll be one of the few surviving pieces of literature, although I doubt that'll happen with the current way of storing literature, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something I always think about when I read, this is just a tangent, but when I read modern, or not modern as modernist, but just contemporary books, I'm like, what do people think 500 or 1,000 years from now, or what'll survive, Yeah, I don't know, obviously, but...
Yeah, because, I mean, there's... I think, to an extent, confirmation bias when you read old literature, oh, this is good, but that's because...
It survived.
It survived probably because it was at least well-liked.
But that's actually not true. There's a lot that survived that's that wasn't well-liked, that wasn't popular, and that just wasn't really good at all.
But I think it's more likely to survive if it's well-liked, right?
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
When there was, back in the 1500s, Shakespeare's time...
There wasn't as much being written, but trust me, there's a lot you can read from back then that you've probably never heard of that just isn't very good.
Yeah. But, what I'm saying is we have more ways to store mediums now.
Yeah, I'm
literature now.
I agree with you, but...
So...
Yeah.
So it's less likely that some gem of literature like Twilight is just going to be lost to the ancients.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also the fact that, just because a lot of stuff survives from back then as well, that nobody's even heard of. So a lot of the stuff that's, even decently popular or not that popular today will survive, but people will remember the more popular ones like Harry Potter.
And Twilight.
Yeah, and Twilight. And 50 Shades.
Ooh. We're going to have to watch that trilogy for Triple Play sometime. I just wanted to remind you of that.
Yep. Hope they make because they came out with Grey, which is from the guy's perspective. Hope they make a trilogy of that, too.
Well, she's writing all 3 books from his perspective, so maybe they'll...
Yeah, that's what, I hope they movie-ize it.
That's a pretty big money-earning franchise somehow.
Yeah, I almost watched the first movie last night, but then I didn't. So.
Why?
Yeah, it was on TV, so, why not? But then I just watched Jeopardy instead.
Good choice. So then, at the end of the episode, the doctor's just kind of looking through the props department and Shakespeare's trying to woo Martha still, and she's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Shakespeare's like, yeah, I know. I already figured it out. The doctor's an alien with a time machine, and you're from the future.
The doctor's like, whoa, it's the first time anyone's figured that out, I think.
Well, I mean, remember Harriet Jones was like, try me, and the doctor explained, she's like, okay, I accept that. I'm just okay with that.
She accepted it. She didn't figure it out.
True, but still. And the doctor's like, yeah, the skull reminds me of a Sycorax. So Shakespeare's like, I'm going to steal that one too. And the doctor like puts the collar on Shakespeare. He's like, you should keep that. Shakespeare's like, maybe I will. I mean, I don't know. Then the queen shows up and is like, doctor, my sworn enemy. And the doctor's like, wait, what? She's like, off with his head. And he's like, what?
She's like, run. So they go back to the TARDIS. And, obviously the doctor's met Queen Elizabeth later on in his timeline.
But earlier in hers, yeah.
Just confusing.
And done something that annoyed her, pissed her off, and he's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out what I did to her, but I really don't know what I did to her.
So one of the guards shoots an arrow into the TARDIS door, which closes just in time, and then they dematerialize.
Yep, then we get the preview for Gridlock.
Which, again, looks like one of the best episodes in a while.
Yeah, I really like
they're actually utilizing New York instead of just panning over to the hospital.
Wait till you see which villain comes back next week.
Is it the cat people? I already know the cat people come back.
I'm teasing it out for you. You'll see next week. You'll be like, wow, they brought them back? You'll see. You're going to have to dig real deep.
Is it the pteroleptals?
No, I'm not going to tell you who it is. You just have to wait. But you're going to be surprised. Trust me.
All right, sure. Overall, this was a cool story. I think it brought some cool concepts to the table. Actually did touch on some Shakespearean concepts in sort of a light way, I guess. But nothing really stand out. And again, nothing egregiously bad either. Shakespeare looks nothing like his... there's that one famous picture of Shakespeare that everyone knows. Looks nothing like that.
Yeah, he has a full head of hair. Oh, that's what
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, because Shakespeare says his head hurts when he gets knocked out, and the doctor's like, don't rub it, you'll go bald.
Yeah, I didn't get that line at first. I get it now. But yeah, wow, I kind of want to go back to when I didn't get it because it was less it was less cringeworthy when I didn't get it.
Shakespeare also mentions the death of his son Hamnet, which was an inspiration for parts of Hamlet, which is real. And Martha goes like, Hamnet?
And Shakespeare's like, yeah, what's wrong with that?
So yeah, overall, I'd say the best Shakespeare plays are King Lear and, no, I'm just kidding.
The best Shakespeare plays are Love's Labour's Lost.
No, but they actually are King Lear and Midsummer Night's Dream. And The Tempest, I guess, but...
Yeah. I don't have any opinion on Shakespeare. English is not my strong suit.
I mean, you can still read the plays and have an opinion on whether you liked them or not.
Yeah, I can, but... I remember so little of the Shakespeare plays that I've read that it's not fair for me to make an opinion.
Actually, it is.
Is it, though?
Yeah. I mean, as long as you've read something once, then you can totally have a valid opinion on it.
Is my valid opinion that the Kenneth Branagh version of Much Ado About Nothing is the best Shakespeare?
Sure. Why not?
Because it's got Keanu Reeves in it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you didn't know?
No, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure it was Much Ado About Nothing. I can't even remember now. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with it was Much Ado About Nothing, and yeah, I'm just gonna be super certain in my assertion that was the one.
Yeah, we don't need to look that up.
Put it in the show notes. Yeah, I think this was kind of just a light fluff piece to kind of introduce Martha to the TARDIS. The Doctor's obviously claiming that it's just one voyage, but we all know that's not true. Yeah.
I didn't think the Carrionites were that interesting. Is it the Carrionites they bring back next week?
You'll find out next week. I'm telling you, you're going to be surprised.
Nah, yeah, I didn't think the Carrionites were like egregiously bad, but they were kind of just there to be villains.
Yeah, I think they can make them really interesting with the whole words have a lot of power over the Carrionites. The Carrionites derive their power from words too, it's implied. So I think,
which is similar to Shakespeare, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that, that's an interesting basis for a villain, but once again, they didn't really do much with it. That kind of just exists to set up the plot of the story. I feel like I've said that a lot for the reboot.
Kind of just an undercurrent of every single Doctor Who story ever made. They didn't really do much with these concepts they brought up.
I feel like the reboot is better at creating villains with like interesting ideas behind them. But I think the reboot hasn't really moved past the classic series thing of not doing anything interesting with the villains in the story.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think certain instances in the classic show actually do a lot more interesting stuff with the villains. Genesis of the Daleks is definitely pretty cool.
Right, but that was, what, the 6th or 7th Dalek story?
Yeah, that's why I said certain episodes or certain stories.
I mean, there are flashes of brilliance, but, you can pick out flashes of brilliance in everything.
In everything? No.
In the show overall, I mean. Because there's obviously nothing redeeming about the massacre except the fact that it doesn't exist anymore. And on that bombshell, you can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the Carrier Knights. If you've listened to the Carrier Knights face off against the Sixth Doctor, tell us your opinions on that too, because we're going to get there eventually. New content every week until we die. You can find us on...
till we die, because until wouldn't fit in Twitter's stupid limitations.
Same difference.
I'm still mad about it, though.
You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Leave a rating if you liked the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Gridlock. But until then, the end.